This is your Wretched Recap for November 21st, 2025. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Zach, the Wretched Watchman, and welcome to the Wretched Recap for November 21st, 2025. And this is a quick hit show that we go over about 4, 5, 6 different topics pretty rapidly for about 20 minutes, and we take care of some news that has occurred over the past week. Sometimes we may go back to a reference of something that I've talked about in the past couple podcasts, but most of the time we talk about some new stuff that I don't necessarily get to discuss on those podcasts. But if you're one of those people that doesn't tune into the podcast, I highly suggest you do. We go over a ton of information and a lot of information that you're probably not going to get anywhere else, and we tackle it from angles that you're probably not going to get very many other places either. So I highly recommend you tune in on those. We are live every Tuesday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. And like I said, we go over a ton of stuff. And of course, ultimately, we point everybody to the hope and the salvation that only Jesus Christ can provide. So make sure you guys tune in for those shows. But for this week, we're going to be covering a few things, all brand new. And we're going to be talking about the United Nations adopting the Gaza plan. We're going to talk about Trump pardoning a Soros traitor, inside traitor. We're going to be talking about a turning point election rigger, who was also a part of the Arizona state government over there. We're going to be talking about the Phoenix Declaration being a part of Florida schools, and then another update regarding Robert Morris. The judge has ruled against the defamation court, allowing it to, or the defamation suit, allowing it to proceed. Or judge ruled against Morris in the defamation thing. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll talk about it. So first up, let's talk about the UN adopting the Gaza plan. So we have been discussing this a few times here and there, depending on when the information comes out and what that information is regarding the situation with Israel, Gaza, and this peace board and this peace plan and so on and so forth. Again, we don't necessarily cover too much with the Middle East news because everything is always changing. Nothing is ever as it seems. You can't get much of real reporting on anything, but we just kind of keep an eye on it, and when things pop up, they pop up, and we talk about it. So we have this. This is in a major breakthrough. UN Security Council adopts U.S. peace plan for Gaza. Russia and China abstained. The vote provides a legal mandate for the Trump administration's vision of how to move past the ceasefire to rebuild the war-ravaged enclave after 2 years of war. Just a couple highlights. It says the United Nations Security Council on Monday approved President Trump's peace plan to Gaza. It says the UN resolution calls for the International Stabilization Force to enter, demilitarize, and govern Gaza. The proposal, which has attached Mr. Trump's 20-point ceasefire plan, also envisions a board of peace to oversee the peace plan, though it does not clarify the composition of the board. The resolution passed with 13 votes in favor and 0 vetoes. Russia and China, either of which could have vetoed the resolution, abstained. And Security Council resolutions are considered legally binding international law, and although the Council does not have a mechanism for enforcing such resolutions, it can take measures to punish violators and so on and so forth. If we jump down here, it says the resolution also allows the World Bank, a UN entity, to allocate financial resources for the reconstruction of Gaza and calls for the establishment of a dedicated trust fund for this purpose. The resolution authorizes the Board of Peace to oversee Gaza at least until the end of 2027 and says the enclave would be managed day to day by a technocratic, apolitical committee of competent Palestinians from the Strip. There's so many things in here. Again, we've been covering this for a while, but just a couple of things to point out in regards to this. They call it a peace plan. It's really not a peace plan at all. It's more of a whole agenda. This has been an ongoing thing for like a decade now. I think this thing was drawn up in 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. But the whole goal of the October 7th situation was Netanyahu and the Israeli government was funding Hamas, which Hamas is a CIA and Mossad created group anyways, but they were funding them through the Qatari government, and then they allowed October 7th to happen, which was the invasion into Israel. They allowed that to happen, which gave them the ability to go into Gaza and start leveling it. Why they want to level it? Because it has to do with a plan that was drawn up by Trump and Netanyahu, Jared Kushner, and a whole bunch of other names, which not worth mentioning right now, but we know that they're all involved. And it has to do with a thing called the Great Trust, and it has to do with rebuilding that entire area over there, creating this rich technocratic utopia with a whole bunch of resorts and golf resorts and huge AI data centers, along with manufacturing plants that are all automated and everything like that. It's trying to create a digital technocratic rich utopia over in that region. We've gone over all that stuff, but that's kind of what was going on with that. And then so after this, Trump came up with the 20-point peace plan. I don't believe Trump came up with anything. I don't think he's smart enough to do it. He has his handlers and so on and so forth that do it for him. But that's neither here nor there. Comes up with this plan that involves getting that whole operation going, along with a board of peace, which would be headed by him and Tony Blair. Those are the names that we know of so far. I've caught wind that Larry Ellison of Oracle is going to be involved, because that would make sense if they're making a technocratic state. So there's all of that that's going on with this whole situation. And then, of course, they're doing the reconstruction, but of course it says managed day-to-day by a technocratic. They specifically put technocratic in there in order to make sure that we know that it's going to be the technocrats that are involved in ruling this thing. So this is something to pay attention to. I'm not going to sit here and speculate or try and predict anything that happens. Anybody that has tried to predict anything going on in the Middle East has gotten it wrong, so it's not worth it. But it's worth at least knowing that this is progressing somewhat accordingly to how we understand that it's supposed to. Take with that what you will. All right, let's move on to the next one. We got Trump pardons Soros trader. And so it says British millionaire Joe Lewis is pardoned by Trump for insider trading and conspiracy crimes. This is British billionaire Joe Lewis, whose family trust owns the Tottenham Hotspur Soccer Club, was pardoned by President Donald Trump more than a year after he was fined $5 million for pleading guilty to insider trading and conspiracy charges in New York, authorities said Thursday. Lewis pleaded guilty in January 2024, saying he knew that sharing non-public information, which he learned from corporate boardrooms without publicly traded companies, with others who then bought stock in those companies, was wrong. At the time of the plea, he was free on $300 million bail. According to prosecutors in an indictment, Lewis shared the secrets with his friends, employees, and romantic interests from 2019 to 2021, urging them to profit from the tips. So I wanted to point this out because this is another case of Trump pardoning another criminal. He continues to pardon criminals. He continues to pardon pedophiles. He continues to pardon financial corrupted people, all because of who they are, the money that they give him, and the connections involved with it. Now, what's fascinating about this guy in particular, and the reason why I really wanted to bring this up, Joe Lewis is one of the people who profited from insider trading and his financial conspiracies because he was the one who shorted against the British pound in the 1992 Black Wednesday situation, where they pulled the rug on the pound and it tanked over there. That was an orchestrated event. It was orchestrated by none other than George Soros and Scott Bessent. If that name sounds familiar, everybody knows George Soros. But if the Bessent name sounds familiar, that's the same dude that's currently sitting in the Department of Treasury right now. He's the Secretary of Treasury with the Trump administration. So you got George Soros, who collapsed the British pound, with the help of Scott Bessent, who is currently sitting in the Secretary of Treasury of the Trump administration, and they went ahead and pardoned Joe Lewis, who profited off of that collapse because he was privy to the information. So there's a lot of, as long as you got connections, as long as you're a friend, then you're going to be taken care of by Trump. So it's a laundry list of people that he has pardoned that all have criminal pasts involving things like financial crimes, corruption, pedophilia, and so on and so forth. So always worth keeping track of things like that, because, as you know, it's only the left, only the Democrats do things like that. Trump is golden boy. He's up there as one of the greatest humans of all time, and he never does anything bad. That's what I continue to get told. All right, moving on to the next thing. We got Turning Point election rigor. Speaking of things that can only happen, when it's a Democrat involved. At least that's what I can continue to get told. Going back to 2024, in order to get an understanding of what's going on with the recent news, this is Turning Point action official resigns after accusations of election-related fraud. This is April 18th, 2024. It says the top leader at the national conservative group Turning Point Action, which amplified false claims of election fraud by Trump and others, resigned Thursday after being accused of forging voter signatures on official paperwork so that he could run for election in Arizona House. State Representative Austin Smith, who was senior director at Turning Point Action, the campaign arm of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, was accused by Democratic activists of submitting petition sheets with rows of voter names, addresses, and signatures that bear striking resemblance to Smith's handwriting. According to a complaint, Smith personally circulated multiple petition sheets bearing what appeared to be forged voter signatures, the complaint said. The complaint was sent to the Arizona Secretary of State, who forwarded it into the Arizona Attorney General for review. And he called these accusations ludicrous, even though he stepped down from his Turning Point position and tried to go quiet in regards to it. But we're just now getting this information that says, Turning Point leader, former GOP representative, pleads guilty in attempted election fraud. So we jump over to November 17, 2025, and what he called a ludicrous and an attack campaign by the Democrats proved to be true. Shocking. Former Republican state legislator Austin Smith pleaded guilty Monday to what he previously called ludicrous charges that he personally forged more than 100 signatures on his petitions for re-election last year. As part of his guilty plea today, Smith admitted signing the name of a deceased woman on one of his candidate nomination petitions in March of 2024, Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays said in a statement. He also admitted that he attempted to deceive the Secretary of State's office by knowingly filing petitions containing forged signatures of purported supporters of his nomination for the Republican primary for state representative from LD29. Smith pleaded guilty to one count on attempted fraudulent schemes and practices and undesignated offense. There we go. Sorry. And to one count of illegal signing of an election petition, a misdemeanor. At the time of the indicted, Smith was a strategic director of Turning Point Action, which is Turning Point USA's advocacy arm. If I can speak proper English today. This is a Maricopa County grand jury indicted Smith on June 2nd on 4 felony counts of presenting documents he knew were forged to the Arizona Secretary of State's office and 10 misdemeanor counts for personally forging the names of electors on his re-election petitions. Around the time he was accused of the petition fraud in spring of 2024, Smith dropped his re-election bid and resigned from his position at Turning Point Action. But it's possible he's actually still working for Turning Point. According to Smith's LinkedIn and X accounts, he was rehired in January as Turning Point Action's strategic director. Spaghetti-o. But when news of the indictment was made public in June, Smith made his X account private, blocking the biographical information, including his job title, and either deleted his LinkedIn account or made it private. And it goes on to say, however, 100 of the signatures on his petition to get on last year's Republican primary ballot, along with corresponding addresses, obviously look like they were all written by the same person. And some of the people whose names are on the petition told the court that they never signed it. And you can go and take a look at those papers, and it's clear as day. He didn't even attempt to try and make them look different. Every signature is clearly written by the same person. So we got another case here where, again, I continue to get told that it is only the left, only the Democrats, only the liberals that do election fraud and do this type of stuff. And the Republicans and the right wing and all that stuff never do anything like that. They never would do that. Everything is a hit piece. Everything is false information. Everything is bad information. Everything is lies because it's only things from the left. And that's exactly what the joys of Satan's political religion does. It brainwashes people into only going with the left-right paradigm. Their party's always good. The other side's always bad. And so everybody's constantly fighting with each other. And none of it matters because they're all on the same team. And the sooner we recognize that and we get past the political theater, the sooner we'll start to see what's really going on. but people would rather sit there and fight politics and blame the opposing political side. And no wonder everybody's blind. No wonder everybody's blind. So we got that going on. Okay. And so we got two more. Let's take a look at the Phoenix Declaration. So I'll be honest, I don't really have much information in regards to this because of who's involved, and they like to hide their stuff. We just kind of got to wait and see what's going on. But either way, if you're in Florida, this is worth paying attention to, especially if you have kids in school. Homeschool, seriously. I know a lot of people, that's a hard thing to do and stuff like that. Figure it out. Get them out of the public school. It says Florida becomes the first state in the nation to adopt the Phoenix Declaration. Today, the State Board of Education unanimously voted to ratify and adopt the Phoenix Declaration, an American vision for education, as the guiding principles for education in Florida. Throughout Governor Ron DeSantis' his tenure, education in Florida has been guided by many of the principles embodied in the Phoenix Declaration, said Commissioner of Education Anastasio Kamatausa. I don't even know. We're in America. By formally adopting the Declaration, we are reaffirming our commitment to an education system that pursues truth and virtue, empowers parents, and always prioritizes our students. What's fascinating is the Phoenix Declaration was unveiled by the Heritage Foundation, the same people behind Project 2025, which is basically dismantling the entire country right now before we speak. And we currently have this going on right now. So the Phoenix Declaration was unveiled by the Heritage Foundation in collaboration with leading education scholars, policy experts, and public officials on February 17th, 2025. You can go on their website. You can look it up. That's stuff like parental choice and responsibility, transparency and accountability, truth and goodness, cultural transmission, character formation, academic excellence, and citizenship. Everything sounds good. Everything reads like, oh, that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. But the problem is we know who the Heritage Foundation is. We know what Project 2025 is. So there's always a catch. There's always something there that doesn't make it good. Now, you won't find it. At least I haven't been able to find it as of yet, because everything that they do with their Project 2025 and stuff like that is they always put up something that looks good, that reads like, if you just read this thing, it sounds great. But the problem is everything that goes on behind the scenes that you don't know about is the hard stuff. And I just don't trust it. It's as simple as that. When I see something coming out from the Heritage Foundation or Project 2025, I just don't trust it. And I don't think anybody should. So just a little warning for you parents in the Florida region. Be very aware of what's going on there. All right. And last but not least, we got judge rules against Morris. And so we've been tracking this for about a month and a half now. I've been mainly covering it just on the recaps regarding Robert Morris and his pedophilia situation that happened. And its latest update, November 12th, says defamation suit against Gateway Church Robert Morris over sexual abuse can continue. Judge rules. Says a sexual abuse victims defamation lawsuit against Gateway Church. Former pastor Robert Morris and several church elders can proceed. A Dallas County judge ruled Tuesday. Good. Let's just keep going. Dallas County District Judge Emily Tobolowski. Where's the money, Lebowski? Anyways, we're going to move on. Tobolowski denied motions by the Southlake Church and its elders to dismiss Cindy Clemshire's lawsuit against them. The decision comes nearly 2 weeks after a hearing in which Gateway's attorney argued the dispute is a religious matter and shouldn't play out in secular court. That is the dumbest argument that you could possibly to go with, and I'm glad the judge is abiding by the law in this. So what's going on? We'll get to the rest of this in just a second, but you might be going, what is going on? Because this was a case of Clemshire going after Robert Morris because of the pedophilia abuse that happened. She was 12, he was 22. He did it for multiple years of her life. And not only that, but he lied about it. The church covered it up, including many elders. We've gone over all that information. We showed who the elders are. Some of them continue to either be pastors of churches or have other ministries and podcasts that they're out there doing this, even though they help cover this whole thing up. And it's absolutely disgusting. One of the major ones in the prophecy community is Jimmy Evans, and he's got a laundry list of problems with his connection to Daystar and calling Joni Lamb the voice of God, as well as covering up pedophilia, but yet he's still out there running a ministry. That dude needs to quit, and he needs to repent and get right with the Lord, because he is not doing anything right. And neither with Robert Morris here, because not only did he do this, he lied about it, he covered it up. He tried to defame Cindy Clemshire, who was the one who was abused by him, calling her a liar and a crazy person and all these types of things. And so he's not repentant. He doesn't believe that he did anything wrong, and he's just going with the motions on this because the latest thing is he tried to get a lawsuit thrown out by the Clemshires, who were trying to get money for the defamation that they were doing against her, because it was not just Robert Morris, but it was his church and the elders who was putting out a campaign against her. And so she sued for that, and he tried to get it dropped. The church tried to get it dropped, and the judge said, we're going to keep going with this. So praise the Lord for that. It says Clemshire publicly revealed last year that Morris sexually abused her in the 1980s when she was 12 and he was 22. Morris pleaded guilty to 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts to a child last month and was given a 10-year sentence, but he'll only serve 6 months. And this is why I'm so grateful that the final judge in all of this is going to be God, because he'll make sure that Robert Morris receives the accountability that that he requires, because obviously Robert Morris is not getting the justice that is supposed to be served here in this lifetime, but he'll get it for eternity. Also worth noting that Robert Morris is a good friend and a campaigner for Donald Trump as well, so that's probably playing into the effect of his only serving 6 months. It says, but he'll only serve 6 months in Osage County Jail in Oklahoma, where the abuse took place. Morris will also have to register as a lifetime sex offender and pay Clemshire $270,000. And if she wins this defamation suit, that'll be another $1 million on top of this, because I believe it's $1 million that she's going for on the defamation. So I'll keep you updated on that. And if anything else comes out regarding it, this is definitely something to pay attention to, as we know this is running rampant in the church and it's not getting any better. But what did you expect these times to look like? These are the last days. Sodom and Gomorrah's, that type of mentality and spirituality is rising again. And this should not surprise us in the least. But again, we know that God is sovereign, God's in control, and we know that he's the ultimate authority, the ultimate judge, and he will make sure that everybody is judged accurately and accordingly when that time comes. So praise the Lord for that. All right, guys, that's what we got for the Wretched Recap for this past week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, if you do not check out the podcasts that we do, the live streams that we do it, I was going to say twice daily, but that's not true. We do it twice weekly. We are live every Tuesday and Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Again, we cover a bunch of information from angles and a non-biased view of things that you probably don't get in very many other places. So make sure you guys tune in for that. And good times. So you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Maranatha.